Before we get into the story, let's go over some background on Dune. What is Dune? Dune is the name of a desert planet, which is extremely important because it contains the only known source of a rare substance known as spice. Spice is more than a fuel, it's also a potent drug. Spice, when used as a drug, confers supernatural abilities on the user. Regular consumption results in striking blue eyes, which is a side effect of addiction. Spice is also extremely valuable because it can be used to manufacture nuclear weapons, making the Dune planet a hotly contested and valuable resource. Now let's get started with the story. The events of this story take place far in the future, when humans have mastered space travel and spread throughout the universe. Planets are ruled by noble houses, each of which serves as an emperor over their own domain. However, the massive Carino Empire reigns supreme, with an army so powerful that no one dares to challenge it. The Empire relies heavily on spice, and its effects are so powerful that its users' eyes have turned permanently blue. The story begins with a young girl named Chani explaining how outsiders come to their desert world to harvest spice, the most valuable resource in the universe. The locals are led by a ruthless man named Rabban. However, the Emperor abruptly and without explanation orders the spice harvesters to leave the planet. Nobody understands why this abrupt decision was made. The scene then shifts to another planet, Caladan. We meet a young man named Paul and his mother, Jessica. Jessica is a mysterious figure, known for her supernatural abilities and frequently referred to as a witch. Jessica, Paul's mother, has powerful abilities and has been training Paul to use them as well. Paul begins to tell his mother about a recurring dream he has of a girl with striking blue eyes. This mysterious girl is Chani, who lives on the desert planet Dune. One day, a visiting ruler from another planet arrives to meet with Paul's father, Duke Leto, the king of Caladan. He informs Duke Leto of the Emperor's orders. They will begin mining spice on Dune. Duke Leto accepts the Emperor's task despite being aware of the risks. Later, Paul shares his dream with one of his father's trusted warriors, informing him that he has predicted his death. Concerned, he advises the warrior to exercise caution, but the man laughs it off. Paul then speaks with his father about his desire to befriend the Freemen, Dune's native people who have adapted to the harsh desert and live their lives around the spice. Chani, the girl from his dreams, is one of the Freemen. As preparations for the journey continue, Paul receives training from his father's war advisor. They practice using energy shields, a defensive technology that can protect against most attacks. Meanwhile, Rabban, a brutal enforcer on Dune, becomes concerned about Duke Leto's arrival on the planet, fearing it will undermine his authority. However, his leader assures him that this move will ultimately benefit their own interests. A mysterious woman arrives to greet Paul. She is aware of Paul's dreams and understands their deeper meaning. Her mission is soon clear. She is here to put Paul to the test, as she believes he is the prophesied savior mentioned in legends, the one who will restore balance to the universe. Before leaving, she warns Jessica that if the prophecy is correct, Paul will face numerous challenges. Paul is both troubled and intrigued by the conversation he overhears. Jessica explains to Paul that the Savior is prophesied to end evil's reign and restore harmony, potentially saving the entire universe from destruction. Paul and his family prepare to travel to Arrakis. Upon arrival, Paul senses that many people see him as a savior, a prophecy that appears to have spread widely, possibly even by the mysterious lady who tested him. They soon arrive in the main city, where Paul's father, Duke Leto, orders the start of spice mining operations. As Paul explores, he discovers that the colossal sandworms that inhabit the desert are attracted to rhythmic vibrations. To avoid attracting the worms, the Freemen, who are native to Arrakis, have adapted by walking in a way that mimics the natural sounds of the desert. Not long after their arrival, an attempt is made on Paul's life with a hunter-seeker, a small, lethal device sent by an agent working for another ruler. Fortunately, Paul makes a narrow escape. One of Duke Leto's warriors informs him that there are Fremen leaders nearby, one of whom he has successfully brought to a meeting. Duke Leto seeks an alliance with the Fremen leader, promising that his rule will provide protection rather than harm. However, the Fremen leader remains cautious, requesting that they respect their lands and resources before eventually leaving Arrakis. Later, Duke Leto inspects the spice mining preparations and is shocked to discover that the previous rulers left the equipment in poor condition. He consults a Fremen scout for advice. She provides them with special desert suits, outfitted with a novel filter system that recycles bodily fluids, making water drinkable. A critical survival tool in the harsh desert, where even a single drop of water is invaluable. These insights into Fremen culture help Paul and his family understand the harsh realities and extraordinary adaptations that define life on Arrakis. Paul and his family board a plane to oversee a spice mining operation in the desert. As they watch, they notice a massive sandworm approaching the machine, drawn by the vibrations. Realizing the danger, Duke Leto decides to land the plane and rescue the crew trapped on the machine. Paul, determined to assist, moves forward but is struck by a series of intense visions and collapses. A fellow crew member pulls him to safety, and they see for the first time how large the sandworm is, as it engulfs the entire mining machine. After returning, Duke Leto urges his team to speed up their spice mining efforts to avoid future complications, but their Fremen guide declines further involvement. A doctor examines Paul and suggests that his fainting could have been caused by an allergic reaction to the spice. Paul tells his mother that he saw the blue-eyed girl from his dreams again, and this time she appeared to be threatening him. He also sees a mysterious knife, a sacred weapon among the Fremen, and feels the presence of a future sibling, perhaps a sister. Meanwhile, Baron Harkonnen, an old rival, prepares his forces to attack Arrakis. Before the attack, a trusted doctor gives Paul and his father sedatives under the guise of ensuring they sleep well. When Duke Leto awakens, he discovers an injured maid nearby, indicating that something has gone very wrong. Before Duke Leto can react, a needle penetrates his shield and paralyzes him. He realizes, shocked, that the doctor is the traitor behind the betrayal, siding with Baron Harkonnen. The doctor removes Duke Leto's ring and promises to deliver it to Paul as a token of his legacy. As a final act, the doctor inserts a poisoned tooth into Leto's mouth, explaining that when crushed, it emits a lethal gas capable of killing Baron Harkonnen if Duke Leto gets close enough. Meanwhile, Paul's allies discover the attack, and despite their efforts to defend the city, they are outmatched by the superior Harkonnen forces. One of Paul's loyal soldiers attempts to enter Paul's quarters but finds it empty. Paul and his mother Jessica have already been apprehended by Harkonnen forces and are being transported to the desert to be left for the deadly sandworms. Jessica uses her mystical powers to subdue the guards, and they manage to flee, watching in horror as the city crumbles under the Harkonnen attack. Paul and Jessica seek temporary refuge, while in another part of the city, the doctor begs Baron Harkonnen to spare his wife. Instead, the Baron murders the doctor, indicating that he will not honor the agreement. He then confronts Duke Leto, who, using his last ounce of strength, shatters the poisoned tooth, releasing a lethal gas cloud. Many of the Baron's men succumb to the gas and collapse around him, and the Baron himself appears to be affected, as the gas cleanup crew discovers his grotesque form adhered to the wall. Baron Harkonnen survives the lethal gas attack, albeit severely injured. Meanwhile, Paul and Jessica discover Duke Leto's signet ring in the doctor's bag, which confirms Paul's father's death. Paul has another intense vision in which he sees himself and the mysterious girl, Chani, leading a fierce battle against the Emperor's army. This vision strengthens Paul's resolve, implying a potential alliance with the Fremen in a future uprising. The next morning, Paul and Jessica prepare to leave, but are apprehended by one of their father's loyal soldiers, who are guided by a hidden tracker in the doctor's bag. He leads them to Chani's lab, where she greets them and explains that it serves as a secure hideout and testing ground. Paul declares his intention to honor his father's wish and join forces with the Fremen to oppose the Emperor. The Emperor's forces eventually close in on them. Paul's loyal soldier heroically defends him, but dies in the battle, resembling a scene Paul saw in his vision. Realizing they are outnumbered, Paul, Jessica, and Chani flee into an underground tunnel. Chani devises a strategy to divert Harkonnen troops. She sets up a device in the desert that summons a massive sandworm, intending to use it as a weapon. As Baron's men approach, the sandworm emerges from beneath, devouring the soldiers and eventually Chani herself. As Paul and his mother fly through the desert in a small plane, they are pursued by enemies. To get away, they plunge into a massive sandstorm, causing their helicopter to crash. Robin believes Paul and Jessica died in the storm and reports their supposed deaths to Baron Harkonnen, who then orders the extermination of all Fremen in the region. Stranded, Paul and Jessica find a survival kit from the wrecked helicopter, which includes still suits that help recycle their body's moisture, allowing them to survive the desert heat. Following the path marked by a soldier's compass, they come across a massive sandworm barreling toward them. However, just as it is about to reach them, it is distracted by the sound and vibrations of a nearby device, causing the worm to stop. They press on and soon find themselves surrounded by Fremen warriors. They realize these Fremen are from the tribe of the leader who previously visited Paul's father. The Fremen, seeing how Paul and Jessica were unharmed by the sandworm, believe Paul is the prophesied savior. Finally, Paul meets Chani, the girl of his dreams. Despite his overwhelming emotions, he remains silent about his visions. The Fremen leader decides to take them in, but one of them challenges Paul, claiming that the device saved him rather than any prophetic power. To prove himself, Paul decides to fight. As he prepares, he has a powerful vision, hearing a voice say, "You must let a part of yourself die in order to awaken the savior within." In this moment, Paul realizes that he must transform himself in order to fulfill his destiny. He hands Chani the knife he saw in his dreams. Chani, still uncertain about his role as savior, hands him the blade with solemn respect, telling him that if nothing else, he will die honorably as a warrior. The duel starts. Paul acknowledges Chani's concerns and asks her to take a step back. The Fremen leader declares that the fight is to the death. Jessica, watching anxiously, tells the leader that Paul has never taken a life before. As the battle heats up, Paul realizes that the voice in his vision was urging him to abandon his former self and embrace a new purpose. In a climactic moment, he defeats his opponent and ends the man's life. When the Fremen see his strength, Paul announces his plan: to join the Fremen and lead them in battle against the Emperor's forces. Moved by his conviction, the Fremen agree to support him. As they travel together, they come across an incredible sight: a Fremen warrior riding a massive sandworm, demonstrating his mastery of the desert. Chani turns to Paul and says, "This is only the beginning." The story concludes on this powerful note, bringing Paul's journey with the Fremen and his destiny as a leader to the brink of a new beginning.